This is ACOFAE.
Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Collection of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content, and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from Dracula with mentions of Buffy, the Addams Family, Underworld, and Nosferatu. For full list, please see show notes.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to ACOFAE, your weekly deep dive into the fantasy, literature, and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing Bram Stoker's Dracula, the 1897 version, and
we're also discussing Bram Stoker's Dracula, the 1992 movie adaptation from Francis Ford Coppola. And it's a great way to celebrate Dracula Day, May 26th. It's a great way to celebrate the start of this book, May 3rd. And here we are. I mean, there's so many, this is the OG. This is the original source material of everything.
Of everything, Jessica Marie. And I know that we have kind of had this discussion before when we were discussing Kill Bill. And also I mentioned when editor Sam saw Scream for the first time, and he was like, oh my God, it all came from this. Oh my God, it all came from this. And Dracula is the perfect, Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola's version and the original novel are the things that everything comes from. It is just fantastic. Now, we have done this in a way that ACOFAE does things, which is slightly more complicated than it deserves, but
we do it to ourselves. We do it to ourselves.
And it was super fun. So you see what happened was we were going to both read the original book, but time got to us, and I proposed a compromise to Jessica Marie, and that was, hey, I think it'd be a lot of fun if you watched Francis's movie with Mr. Gary Oldman, and everybody you've ever thought of ever about a gothic movie ever is in this movie. And why don't you watch that, and I'll read the book, and then we will compare and contrast as ACOFAE does, because Francis's movie is one of the most accurate Dracula adaptations put to film. Not counting Nosferatu, because come on, that's we're gonna talk about the fan fiction part of it at the end. We're gonna talk about the fan fiction part of it at the end because that's so much fun. But Jessica Marie, what is your experience with either Dracula or vampires?
Oh, I can't even remember the origin of my love for vampires. Let me just start there. I just feel like one day, all of a sudden, I was just enamored with the paranormal, honestly. It wasn't just vampires. I mean, it comes in the same realm of witches and werewolves, and maybe it was the Addams Family and the Munsters, like Nick at Night, because there was just a lightness to it all. I mean, I know we've talked on the podcast about not being familiar with the classics and how typically people are exposed to the classics. And I kind of just skipped all over that. And I just never went back. It was one of those things, the further you get away from it, the further other things the more other things become a priority because they're right in front of you. So I never went back to the original source material. So I can't tell you where it came from. But what I do know with some of the research that I was loosely doing for this episode was how many iterations there have been of Dracula, which is over 90. And then compare that to how many variations of Dracula in the sense that they are embedded in vampire culture and pop culture and media is over 200. I mean, Laura, you had said even a perfect example before we started recording was Buffy. We have our Buffy episode on the podcast from the original movie, and we know, and I think I was thinking of Underworld, What We Do in the Shadows. I mean, these are just like top of line. These aren't even like, these are just some things where, no, it's not the story of Dracula, but Dracula is mentioned. He is always, there is always that he is this being, the original of who the vampires pray to, and really respect. And what I love about Bram Stoker's Dracula, and we were talking also before, was that I don't think he did anything wrong. He had every right to be mad. And honestly, when I saw this version, and I'm talking about the 92 version for this episode, I saw the religious iconography, and I was like, this has Laura written all over it. I know she was like, she wasn't even around in 92, but once she watched it, I know this was her shit from 2 minutes in.
It truly was. Okay, so if we want to talk about like my experience with this, I have in my hands right now a pocket knife that has Dracula.
That's cool.
And when
Wait,
I will tell you, when I open it, it has Dracula himself in his coffin right there going rawr, and then it is all like engraved bats on the side, and then the knife is in there. Okay. This was a gift to me when I was 6 years old from my father.
Wait, so did you get that before knowing who Dracula was? Is that like how he was like, what's that?
So I don't think it's a surprise to anybody to learn that my dad introduced me to all of the classic monster movies when I was a child. As a child, there's like nobody to like prove this, damn. But as a child, I was very obsessed with Vincent Price. Actually, there's one person, Stacy, shout out to you. I was obsessed with Vincent Price and all of his movies. So of course, like House on Haunted Hill, all of that stuff, which is not necessarily monster movies, but like is in the creepy sort of movies. And this will not surprise anybody, but Elvira was the next kind of like pathway into that. And Elvira did the monster movies. So I saw like the Wolfman, all of the, the Bride, all of these things, Frankenstein, all of these things, through in that lens, in a lens of like edited for TV, black and white, scary, with my dad, as a kid, very fun, right? Very, very fun. So then I had all of these references like very early on growing up. And then to read the book, I started reading the book in high school. I read the book again in college. Again, so I've read it like 4 or 5 times. For this episode, I've read it like probably 3 times. I love this book. This book, and as my point is to what Jess said, I didn't think he did anything wrong. I love this book so much because the love story that is depicted in Francis's movie with Gary Oldman, with Keanu, with Winona, with Carrie, with Anthony, with Jesus Christ, everybody.
When I watched
everybody.
This, I was like, you just said, oh, it's the one with Gary Oldman in it. I go, okay, that's how I knew which one to watch on Amazon Prime. And then I didn't even look at all of the names on the billing. I just like hit play. And every single face, I was like, oh my gosh. That's so-and-so. That's so-and-so. And it was so crazy to see them because this is also like before they were who they were. Maybe Winona. This is like peak. I say peak Winona. She comes in and out of media. But they were so young. And I had to double check because I go, no. The whole time. I was like, no way. And I even with Gary because he's like, it's young Sirius Black.
Well, Gary Oldman, Gary Oldman has permeated our entire lives by being the best character actor of our generation. And we just he's severely underappreciated, even though he is loved.
Do you think he's underappreciated? Or
Or
are we just in a bubble and we overappreciate him?
I feel like he is appreciated in the right circles, but that he does not have his claws, so to speak, in the younger generations. You know what I'm saying? But all of this to say that Gary's performance in Francis's movie of this love story, this Mina, my Mina, I've traveled oceans of time. Oh my God, stop. That is an addition. The love story that kind of permeates Dracula and kind of turns him into this romantic hero, or this villain that we root for, does not exist in the book. Brom makes it very scary. It is very cut and dry. He is a fiend, and he preys on children and he preys on women, and he's a monster, and he's corrupting, and it is so interesting that society, pop culture, has turned him into this other figure. I just find that fascinating, and it's so much more than people just being like, oh, Frankenstein, he's a doctor, all this stuff. It's more than just that kind of general confusion about Frankenstein. This is a complete different characterization of the main villain, which I find completely fascinating, especially because, as I said, this movie that I had just watched, because it's just the best one, is the most accurate. It has all of the elements, and Jess keeps talking about the cast. It is very easy, because it is so well acted, to overlay all of these performances onto their characters in the book. Specifically, I just want to point out Anthony Hopkins' performance as Van Helsing. I mean, Van Helsing here, comes here, is spot on. In the book, he has this kind of frenetic, frantic energy. He kind of speaks a little bit in riddles, but kind of gets to the point. He's very firm. He's a man of action. Anthony, of course he does, plays it to perfection. But Jess, we were talking about these characters. Do you have a cast list of who these people actually are? Because I asked, this movie is one of the only ones to accurately portray all of Lucy's suitors. Other adaptations cut them to maybe one.
Oh.
And you kind of lose this band of people coming together to fight evil and avenge the death of Lucy and save Mina. I like that it is all of these men, and I
like that Lucy has all these men wrapped around her finger and in front of each other. She was not hiding it when she would have a dinner party. She's like, oh, Mina, watch this. I have every single one wrapped. It's all, and then it's the 1800s. So she's a flirt. She's also never it's 1800s. She's never slept with a man. She's alluded to she's like, of course I've done that in my dreams. I love their friendship. I love their protectiveness of each other. I really, and even with, I'll get there at the end. But I do love that they all know that they're Lucy's the prize. They're lucky that she gave them the time of day and invite to grace her with their presence, kind of thing.
Yes.
I just love it. I love it.
Yes. And that is true in the book as well. They're all interacting with each other. They're all aware of each other. I think it's important to point out that the book is all journal entries and newspaper clippings and recordings and shorthand notes and things. It's not a cohesive story. So it's just Mina Harker's journal, and then there's dates, Jonathan Harker's journal, and there's dates, transcript of Jack when he's in the asylum and he's got Renfield, and Renfield's doing all his crazy shit. He's got all his transcripts that he does in like the like it's a very unique format of the book, which I do feel can be difficult for people to kind of like sink their teeth into. The audio is really okay. I want to be really specific because Jess and I went through this, and there are a lot of different audio versions of Dracula. So I want to be very clear on the one that I read. I read Bram Stoker, Dracula, the original classic novel, narrated by Susan Adams and Alexander Spencer. They fucking kill it. They kill it. They are so good. So much so that at some points I was like, is this Winona Ryder? Did Winona Ryder do this? Like, it is crazy. And sometimes with, like I said earlier, Van Helsing, it's just so accurate that you're just like, when did they record? Like, oh my God, like kind of thing. It's just fantastic. So if you have never, here's my pitch. If you have never read the book, but you've seen this version specifically of the movie, I would recommend going back and listening to the audio of the book because it's scary. It is scary. And there's a lot of jokes about Dracula. You know, you can, all these things, the capes, the hair, there's so many jokes about Dracula. But he is actually very scary, especially in the book version. He is, when he's scaling down those walls and he's feeding these women babies, and he is, right behind Jonathan in the castle. He's old and he's right behind Jonathan, and he smashes the mirror and he licks the blood off the razor, and he's doing these in his shadows. The shadow work, Jessica Marie, in the movie, I thought was just fantastic in the beginning with Gary, and the shadows are behind and moving, like it's one of those movies and I'm sure we'll get to it, but it's one of those movies that you have to like watch because it's very visual on top of like everything else that's going on. And you had a funny experience with that, which I hope you will share with us later.
Well, I was thinking about it now. Well, I have two specifically. That one was picked up through watching and gaslighting myself. And the second was because I had not paid attention. And by my third watch, I was like, I died laughing. I should have just watched it though. I mean, I was watching it. I was just distracted for a moment.
So, Jess, do you have a cast list? Can you tell me who these people are? Because it's accurate in the book and it's accurate in this movie. So I think using one and the same is very easy and would be an accessible tool for some people.
Yeah, so we have Gary Oldman as Dracula. We have Winona Ryder as Mina and Dracula's original first love, Elizabetta. We have Anthony Hopkins playing Van Helsing, Keanu Reeves playing Jonathan Harker, Cary Elwes as Lord Arthur Holmwood. We have Billy Campbell as Quincy Morris, Sadie Frost as Lucy, Tom Waits as Renfield. We have Jay Robinson as Mr. Hawkins, and then we have a couple people who are like playing the zookeepers and the Dracula's brides. Monica Bellucci was one of Dracula's brides. But those are kind of like our key players that we see reoccurring mostly.
And specifically, all of Lucy's suitors. Dr. Seward is in charge of the insane asylum. And, Quincy Morris is a Texan. He's our Texan. There's always a Texan in these gothic, if you've seen Penny Dreadful with Eva Green, Josh Hartnett, we get our Texan. There's always a Texan in these gothic horrors. And then Arthur, sweet Arthur, who, doesn't deserve any of this, honestly. He's such a good guy.
He still loves her bad through the end, like by her side as what's the thing? We don't want to say she's dead because she's not. They keep trying to say like, oh, she's dead. And you have Van Helsing saying, no, she's undead. She's not dead. Undead. She's undead. And everybody's like, what does that mean? And he's like, you'll see.
You'll see. You have to see with your eyes. You must see with your eyes. It's fantastic. Fantastic stuff. Okay. So what happens in Dracula? in the movie that Jessica watches, we have this like epic love story, and that story drives the whole thing.
And it starts out that way too. Like there is no lead in, whereas the book, it starts immediately with Jonathan on the train. Like he is journaling on the train. So, I mean, we get to the Jonathan part eventually, but it's still led, the movie is led with the story. It's led with Dracula and his love and how the church fucked him over. And he was like, I did your God's work. I did that. I fought for you, and for what? I denounce your God. I was like, you know what? That's fucking real. I mean, a lot of people are working through their religious trauma, and I feel like this was just such a great example of people questioning, you know, their faith when you have a loss of a loved one.
It is wonderful. So he's saying his armor, wonderful. Of course, in the book, we start off with, you know, Keanu on the train journaling, but like you said, we get there. So you can see like what they added and where it actually like starts. Like it's just so, it's so good. It's so good. So in the book, we have Jonathan's, all of Jonathan's journals are spot on in what we see in the movie. All of his interactions with Dracula, how he gets there, the women, the hotel, you know, the carriage, the blue flame, the wolves, the driver, all of that stuff. And then Dracula being the only one in the house, being old, you know, being gone all day. Jonathan being the only one in the house, you know, and then eventually becoming very scared and aware that he is a prisoner. And then kind of like, he describes it as like a descent into madness. He doesn't know. He needs to keep writing it down. You know, will his brain deceive him? And it is wonderful to know that the movie is so accurate in this, you know, with the feeding of the babies, the climbing down of the walls, the shots of the castle. It is helpful to make this classic book accessible to people because it is so accurate, and it does add this like societal hook of this love story.
That's exactly what I was going to add, was that by also casting relevant people, and for it to be so accurate, minus the love story, you're going to have people intrigued. And I know that was something that we talked about a couple weeks ago when we covered Sarah L. Arifi's Cleopatra, was bringing it to the forefront of the conversation and making it accessible for different generations, fresher generations, you know, and that's what this version did in 92. This adaptation of Dracula was putting it at the forefront. And if anything, you know, I think we had the conversation. I go, I actually want to make the time to go back to the original source material to read Dracula now that I can put all of these faces and knowing that it's so accurate to the story.
Yeah. And the vibe is the same too. And I know seeing Gary Oldman turn into a bat thing is something. It is something.
Hear me out. It was better than what he looked like when he first met Jonathan.
There you
go. So if we want to talk about a hear me out, that could be arguably a good hear me out.
And this is, you know, again, Dracula, our source material. I do want to point out, this is very important, that it's not the first vampire book that is like kind of attributed to The Vampire, A Tale, in 1819 by John William Polidori. That story, okay, you're right. So like 1819, ours is 1897. So, you know, it's a lot of lore. It's a lot of lore going on that Bram was like working with. But his is kind of like the second or the third. So, you know, we kind of give it to that one. Interesting little aside about The Vampire, A Tale. It is debated that it popped up because it was attributed to Lord Byron during Mary Shelley's Frankenstein kind of like fuck party. But that has been like, debunked or disproved. But I still kind of kind of like to think in my head that these like two classic things came out of that like wild ass time. I just think that's fun. But if you're interested in that, you can look that up. The story of that is very, very, very interesting. But we are here though talking about Dracula and the societal hook of the addition of the love story. I do think it's necessary, especially in the movies, because people have short attention spans and people are dumb and they need something. Even in Nosferatu, the recent one that just came out with Bill, that is not a love story, but that is intriguing enough where it is something that you are sitting and thinking with the whole time.
Well, I mean, and you told me, I mean, we've had this conversation off of the podcast too, because I have not seen Nosferatu because I knew it to be a horror movie. Obviously it's no secret. I don't do horror. But I can't imagine this being Dracula being under the horror umbrella, because I watched it completely. And again, I don't know if it's because it's the same way I felt with American Horror Story Coven. That was the first season that I watched because I love witches. You couldn't turn me. If I was going to watch it, the lights were going to be on the first episode, but it was witches. You weren't going to keep me away. So I don't know if this is classified under that.
Yes,
because it is considered horror. Interesting.
This is horror. This is like
because I don't feel that way. I'm just like vampires, yay!
Yeah,
because again, the same thing can be said with like talking about source material and how it's permeated through the years. Anne Rice has love interconnected with all of her vampire stories too. So that's where I was like, is she horror? Like, it just makes me, is it horror? Is it just paranormal? I don't have the jump scare that I feel like when, like, it comes to Saw horror.
And that is also kind of something too. Are you, because you're more exposed, like you have grown up, you are aware, you know what a vampire can do, and it's not necessarily scary. I kind
of wanted. I'm with Winona where she was like, take me away from all of this death.
Take me away from all of this death. There's a request from friend of show Rachel to discuss and acknowledge the accents of Mr. Keanu and Miss Winona. They are in themselves their own characters. These accents are atrocious and perfect. Wonderful, distracting, fitting, lovely.
They're needed.
Awful. Right?
But you know what? But here's the thing. It's like when we say we love, like, this is an instance where it's an accent equivalent. And I'm not saying we like this across the board, but when we love a good bad wig? That's what I feel like this is. I don't need every movie to have a good bad accent. But the good bad accents work here. Speaking of accents, I mean, obviously Gary Oldman is who he is. That poor man had to go through listening to all of this. That he hired a singing coach. And I was looking at this at our pop-up video facts on Amazon Prime, the people yearn for pop-up video. He hired a singing coach. And at first, when I was looking at that fact, this third watch, I was like, did I forget that they sing in this? No. As I kept reading, it was so it would help lower his octave in his acting of Dracula. That man.
Gary Oldman, he's maturing, growing up is realizing that it's Anthony, it's Gary, Anthony Hopkins, Carrie, Gary, and Keanu. I could go either way. One of us.
I think I can hold on Anthony. Absolutely on Carrie and Keanu. And Gary, I told you by this watch, I go, I get it now, Mina. I get it. I mean, I was always about him as serious. Like, there was no question. Serious, yeah. But by the third time, I go, okay, I get you, Prince Dracula. We like you.
We get it. We get it. The time, the suits, the glasses, the cravat, all of it.
The allure. And I do like that she was very man-hater at first. She was like, excuse you, spoken for. And then she becomes, spoiler 200 years later, I guess, that he kills her friend and turns her. And she's like, you killed her, but I love you. Whoa, what a life.
Which is amazing. Like all of that interaction, Dracula doesn't interact with Mina until like the very tail end of all of this, when, the wafer, like when she's like kind of, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So the point that I want to make here is that the book is so girly pop because the whole thing hinges on the friendship between Mina and Lucy. The whole thing. It's like a couple parts, right? Like Lucy in the book, she's not a redhead. I think she's brunette in the book. I'm not sure. Not something that I was really paying attention to, because in my head she's the redhead, but so the plot kind of hinges on Lucy being so alluring that she just pulls all of these men to her, right? And that's kind of like the lesson, like the morality of the book, right? Like Lucy faces the ultimate consequences because she's wanton with her affections and pulls all these men, so she is the victim of it. So, but not my point right now. But so the plot is Lucy being alluring and calling all of these men to her, and then her confiding all of this to Mina, and then Mina being an active participant in the friendship and writing back to her, while also the two of them keeping journals. If they didn't exist, the plot completely falls apart. And I love very specifically that by the end of the book ends with Van Helsing bouncing Mina and Jonathan's baby on his knee, saying like, one day this baby will know how wonderful and perfect and strong your mother is. All of this is for you. You are the best among women. And it ends like that.
Because there's no Dracula Mina love story in the book.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Because Lucy, and obviously the movie, she's always reminding her, like, oh, you're smitten today. Is it because you heard from your man? Oh, like, you are so much lighter. Are you haven't been in touch with him for a while? Because let's remember that at some point, Jonathan's kind of under lock and key at Dracula's.
Yes.
So he's also, his correspondence is less. His correspondence is minimum because he's also, fair. I understand his mindset. He goes, if I'm getting any correspondence out, it could be being monitored. I don't know. I can't actually divulge what is actually going on. So, but she's also the love of my life. I don't want her to worry. Do I have her move on? And you just have Mina kind of pining and waiting and worrying and this, that, the other thing. And Lucy is there through it all. And she's also like giving some levity of, look at my suitors. Look at how I have them wrapped around my finger. This could be fun if you let it. And, and I think there is a level of girlhood that they share in the 1800s that clearly only two women with the relationship that they have can share, the concern that they have, that there isn't this competition either. There is a genuine concern because all they have is each other. Men are secondary to their relationships.
And it's even more so in the book that this is highlighted because Mina and Lucy are together in the book for just a little bit when they are like in the cemetery over on the water, and they're there for that. And then Mina gets the letter to go to Jonathan, and Mina goes to Jonathan, and she doesn't come back until well after Lucy is dead as absolute fuck. So
like dead?
Dead,
not
dead.
Undead? Okay.
Like dead. So what happens is that Mina starts sending letters that are marked as like unread by Lucy, unread by Lucy. And so we get this like one-sided kind of correspondence where it's like, I haven't heard from you. Are you all right? Tell me, how's your mother? When are you getting married? Like, you know, tell me all of these things, because in the book, Jonathan, obviously, just like the movie, is found by the nuns and like nursed by the nuns. And then Jonathan's law boss is dying and gives Jonathan his entire estate. So Jonathan becomes incredibly wealthy overnight. And Mina has to they're in Exeter, out in Exeter, and Mina is setting up estate and like getting everything together and doing all these papers. And Jonathan is like not well. And because he has like, you know, he's still recovering. And then Mina and Jonathan, this is like in the book, they go to this lawman's funeral. And while they're in London, in town, Jonathan sees the Count and he goes, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's him, it's him. And Mina is like, what the fuck are you talking about, my guy? What are you talking about? And that,
but she doesn't see him.
She sees him, but she doesn't. She's like, who is that? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean? I don't know who that is, because he's really freaking out and he goes into like a faint. And from that moment on, when Jonathan sees him, Mina reads Jonathan's journal. She learns about what happened. And then, to my point, she gets a letter from Van Helsing that says, hey, Lucy died, man, but I, Van Helsing, have read all of your letters, and I know that you were her best friend. Can I come to you and talk to you about Lucy and see if what happened when you were staying with her is anything like what happened before she died? We need to figure out like a timeline of events. And then Van Helsing goes, talks to Mina, and Mina is like, oh my God, but Jonathan is freaking out too. Jonathan saw this man and he's freaking out. And here's Jonathan's journal that I've typed up for you. Please read Jonathan's journal. And Van Helsing is like, brain on fire. All points are connecting. And from that moment on, he sees Mina as like this goddess figure that
she put everything to like,
she did it all. Yeah.
Queen.
Yes, exactly. And you know, she's always on her typewriter. She's always typing up everything. Mina is the one that figures out where Dracula is going after he's thwarted in London. And of course she's hypnotized, so she helps that way as well. But it's this high regard that all these men are holding Mina in, that were brought into this whole thing because of the wantonness of Lucy. So it's their deliverance too. You know, it's all these like these plot motions. This book is just a lot of fun. And it is just so much easier explained in this movie format.
No, and that's so like now, I mean, even she's hypnotized. She's used as the decoy. And we know she's the decoy because, I mean, at least in the movie, because of Dracula's love for her. But all of the men do rally. And I love it. They're just waiting till sunset to really go for it. But even in the end, Dracula has come to this full understanding that his life isn't, to continue living his life without her is pointless, but how love transcends everything. But you don't have that in the book. It's the love that Mina and Jonathan share that is what transcends.
Yeah. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And then we haven't touched on Renfield, which is such a character throughout literature. Like Renfield has so many like incarnations. He was just in a movie with Nicholas Hoult was Renfield, with Nick Cage as Dracula. Really good stuff. Renfield is just like that classic character, the crazy guy in the insane asylum eating bugs. Like if you ever see him that character, it's Renfield, always, always, always. And again, just one of these character archetypes that have just come from this. Like, this is the original.
You know who he reminded me of? And because he kept talking about like the flies, and he's like, I want to be immortal forever. He reminded me of Guillermo and What We Do in the Shadows. He's like, I've been serving him. It's my 10-year anniversary. This is the year I'm going to be a vampire. And so he's who I thought of. I mean, granted, Renfield has gone a little, off his rocker in here, but that's exactly who and again, because I'm not familiar with Renfield throughout his character basis throughout all the other 200 plus Dracula vampire lore that's out there. So that was my immediate association, but there's always one, or I mean, at least three, because you got you and I who are like, if we had to choose, granted, I know you're a witch. We've discussed this in our other vampire and werewolf episodes, specifically Bitten. If it was one or the other, we're always like, you're my first stop. And I'm like, we have to do this right.
100%. Spoiler for What We Do in the Shadows, Guillermo ends up being a Van Helsing.
Oh, my heart. Oh, poor Guillermo.
Isn't that so fun though?
That's super fun. But what's the thing? You either die and become the hero, or live long enough to become the villain.
Yep. Oh my God, so fun. Yeah, cowards there. So again, just like these pop culture, these like media like figures that just kind of permeate. This is the source material. Like the classics are there. Sometimes. And in this instance, the classics are classic for a reason. I just think it is so fantastic. So I do want to point out that a significant like middle chunk of the book, of the novel, is these men frantically trying to figure out what's happening to Lucy. I mean, they are, all of her suitors plus Van Helsing, the four of them are giving blood transfusions, throwing garlic everywhere, running around, looking at the marks on her neck. Like, they are frantically trying to help her. And it is a significant section of the book, like the middle part of it.
I also think, I just continue to think that it's, this is before Lucy probably understood the why choose genre, because if there was a girl who would have liked it, it is Lucy, absolutely. But the men don't feel threatened by each other either. Like, their main priority is Lucy. Like, I get that you're my competition, but we all love the same woman, so let's rally for her. And then we'll figure out all our shit. And
she also was like, she treated them... she's a flirt, but she treated them fairly. She was very clear on everything. And we love Lucy. We love Lucy. We love Lucy's nightgowns. We love her out doing her thing. Her sweepingness with her robes. And and that's also the storyline, is like, she sleepwalks. I mean, that's part of it. And there's always a concern, like, are you going to get loose? Who knows where you're going to end up? You're a woman by yourself who sleepwalks, and you have a nightly negligee and robe that can be appealing on the streets of London if you're not supervised. And we know that when she has her interaction with Dracula too, that was like, yes, she jokes around and she's a flirt and she's promiscuous and she has, sexual ideations that she has for herself, completely consensual, of course. But in the moment that she wakes up from it, it was not consent. She was like distraught that this thing actually happened, because she was not aware, and it was her body overtook because of the hypnosis that Dracula kind of permeated through her subconscious. And that's the same in the book. When she's in her sleep state, where she's like hot and kind of like this, she's pushing the garlic away from her. And then when she wakes up, she clutches it to her. She needs the safety. It's this being afraid to go to sleep. Dracula tormenting Lucy by the bat, in the window. All of these things like come from here. It is just fantastic. And this is all happening because Dracula is coming to London, right? He has said, fuck you, Jonathan, die here. and he has loaded up his boat with all of the sand and the boxes of earth, and that it's come over on the boat. Now, this is interesting because the boat is called the Demeter. And if I am not mistaken, there is a new Dracula project called The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is based on the captain's passage of what happened on the voyage. And that is ripped straight from the pages of the novel. I see Jess is Googling.
Yeah, no, The Last Voyage of the Demeter to 2023 it came out, and Corey Hawkins is in it. Liam Cunningham plays the captain. I'm trying to see if I know any names. Not really.
But Liam's something. So that is another thing. Like, that is a reference. That is a chapter ripped out from this classic book that you're just like, what is that? Oh, that is Dracula's voyage coming from Romania, coming to London. That's the fog. That's his hands tied to this, it's dramatic. It's gothic. It's the fog and the rain, and he comes out on the dog with the eyes. Like it's.
And what an interesting take. Like, clearly I haven't seen it and wasn't even aware, but it is an original angle that I don't think has been explored yet until now.
And rightly so. Make something, new. The source material is there. We can put a spin on it. There's so much we can do with Dracula. We can do with other things. Hugh Jackman is Van Helsing. Kate Beckinsale is, I don't remember who she is. Her brother is a werewolf. And the brides, that's the important part of Van Helsing. And Dracula is played by the same man who plays the Duke in Moulin Rouge. And that is super fun.
I can't see him as anything else.
Yeah.
I'd be like, it's you!
It's super fun. It's super fun. So don't worry. Van Helsing is on our radar. But again, this Lucy is such a huge part of the story. And because she is, and because this is in, the late 1800s, and because she's a little bit wanton, it has always had this discussion, is that, the consequences of her actions. And then later, Jessica Marie, when Lucy is not dead, but undead, and she has a child. Jessica Marie, what was that like for you to actually see? Because it is ripped, again, straight from the book.
Well, the first couple times I watched this, like I said, I was like, oh, this is like a slower part. And I just multitasked, should not have, because this time when I was just gearing up again, by the third watch, Lucy's carrying a child. And the men come down for Lucy to get back as she's getting back in her crypt. And they go, Lucy, she whips around and drops the child. And I just laugh. The theatrics. I'm not saying it's hilarious when kids get hurt. Sometimes it is. I'm putting it out there. You're lying if you say you haven't seen a video where you laughed at a kid and it just happens. But that's what I felt like. It was just a swing and a thud. And I didn't notice it the first time, and I'm so glad. I was like, oh, because it didn't even feel horror, it felt camp. But knowing the horror genre, there's a lot of camp involvement there too. That being said, I full bellied laughed, and I was mad at myself, but I loved that was my reaction. I was like, it took me till now. It was great. But everything with Lucy is very, in the screen adaptation, it's very over the top, but it's for a reason, obviously.
I also love Lucy's in the movie, her costuming with the white, and then the high with the white.
The high neck, the painted skin, everything was very gaunt, to obviously signify that she is dead / undead, but the makeup, I would have to assume to prove a point. She's not decaying. It is staying. This is her now. But as ACOFAE says, no head, not dead. And they fucking behead her. And they were like, not only do you stake her, you got to behead her. There was just not a question. So that's why I said, are you referring to when she was dead or like dead? Are we undead? Where are we? So that was the first I go, oh, she's dead once they beheaded her.
And I appreciate the thoroughness too, because again, right from the book, it is harrowing. They don't want to do it. It is difficult. Like it's, you know, they struggle with it. Even when all of the men they're seeing Lucy do all of this, it is heartbreaking for them. And it's a bit of a time. In the book, when Lucy is like, you know, buried, she's buried with her mom. And then, there's like 4 or 5 days before Van Helsing finds out that Lucy is undead in the train station, coming back from Jonathan Harker's house. He sees it. He's like, oh my God, all of these children are being bitten. That's being reported in the news. Oh my God, it's in like, you know, Hampshire or wherever Lucy is. Like, oh my God, it's happened so fast. Like, holy shit. So there's like a little bit of a gap, and it is, you know, the men rally and then they see and everything. And it is a harder sell. Like Van Helsing really has to sell it to Jack. And Jack is like, I don't fucking believe you. Like, this is crazy. This is crazy. You want knives? You want autopsy stuff? Like, she's dead, man. Like,
and this is coming from the doctor. Like,
yeah.
He's like, and I mean, that's where Van Helsing's like, hey, I'm a doctor too. Look at all my transfusion material. We can try. And even with, Carrie's character, he's like, I'll give her my blood. I'll give her every drop. Van Helsing says, bet. You should, because you might.
Yep, you should, because you might. And they do, and it doesn't matter, and she's dead. It's just this great stuff. And then Mina is, you know, and then Lucy goes, and then Mina is now our focus. And then Mina comes in, and then it is her purity that we have to like maintain. And I find it so funny because in the book, like these learned men, right, who are men of science, that we can assume are like top men of science, right? And we're dealing with these like supernatural forces, these top men of science who just watched Lucy transform, die, be reborn, all of this stuff, do not recognize what is happening to Mina until like way too late. And then they're just like, by Scott, how did we miss this?
I mean, an ongoing theme for me that kept going in my head as I was watching the movie was, men are so dumb. I mean, I say that regularly, but it's just like, again, in this movie, because you have Lucy being the flirt that she is, and they fall for it every time. So then again, when it happens, like Van Helsing is the only one who there is no wool over his eyes. Everybody else, I mean, put a woman in front of them, they are just putty. And that stays consistent.
It does. It does stay consistent. So when Mina is brought in and all of the connections are being made, everybody starts like zeroing in on Dracula and like where he is, where his boxes are, and how we can like narrow down and get him out of London, because they are afraid that he is going to start repopulating with vampires like he did with Lucy and like he's trying to do with Mina. And they kind of figure this out by noting Renfield and what Renfield is doing and like where he's going when he breaks out and the conversations that he's having and like all of this stuff. So it is then when the men chase Dracula out of London, right? And Dracula is heading back overseas and they're using Mina to track him. Mina is unclean at this point. She has the communion wafer has been burned into her head by Van Helsing, and she struggles with this visible sign of her unclean soul throughout the rest of the book, which is like just a little bit, honestly. It's not a lot when this happens to Mina. And it's a like physical reminder for all of the men around her too, to like sack up, like get your shit together and save this woman. And even in the end, when I guess, spoiler, Quincy is dying, he's like, all of this was worth it because I can look at you, dear woman, and see that like you are pure again. And I would die 1,000 deaths to make sure that your soul is restored. It's like, yes, like, yeah, die again to save her. Like, absolutely.
Yes, die to save her, but I'm shaking my head because it's the frustration of purity. Purity is a patriarchal concept that's put onto women. That's where I'm shaking my head. Like, you are worthy because you are pure. Like, that's what I'm shaking my head against, like rolling my eyes, shaking my head. But I do understand where, yes, do all the things, but it's the same conversation we have where the concept of virginity.
I agree with you, but like, I do find that because the women have like, it's not that they have agency so much, it's like, they're so important to the plot. Like they have like, yeah, like thoughts and feelings and opinions. They drive the plot. They figure it out.
Strength. Yeah. Which I'm and honestly, like this seems and feels ahead of its time. For a woman to be driving the narrative and to be the savior in 1897.
It's with,
I mean, historically, yes, women always, like, yes. But to have this, I mean, it's the same thing with Frankenstein too. It's not Frankenstein. It's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's Frankenstein's monster.
It's just so fun because when you think of Dracula, you think of the man, right? The man. But when you dive into Dracula, it's the women basically manipulating all these men, which I just love. And then if you get into the movie side of Dracula, it's his undying love for a woman that drives the plot. So like it's there just kind of in a different format.
Women are consistently at the helm of this story. Absolutely. I mean, like you said, I mean, what is it? The men are the head, but the women are the neck, and women can move the head. The neck can move the head in any way it wants. I mean, that's very much the story.
It is. And without the hypnosis that Van Helsing does to Mina, they have no idea where Dracula is, where he's moving, how he's moving. Like, he's on the water, he's on the river, it's the boat, it's going here. Like, we're tracking him. I feel him. He's close. Like, all of these, without her, they have nothing and can do nothing. And of course, they're tracking Dracula because they have this fear that, like, if they lose him, if they lose this trail, he could hibernate for another 1,000 years. And then what? They'll be dead. And like, but Mina will still be there, will still be alive because Mina is in the process of transforming to be another one of his like brides, I think is what Van Helsing says. So they're like just desperately trying to stop this. And it happens so quickly. Like they track him out of London. They track him, through the pass, through the mountains, the wolves, the flame, right? It's just Anthony Hopkins and Winona Ryder. They're on their own with the circle of protection around them and the flame and the horses and the wolves. It's all very it's very dramatic. Keanu's got white hair by this time, right, Jess?
This is the part where I was telling you I was gaslighting myself because the first couple of times I had watched it, I just have really great, lighting all around my room. So I was watching it there and I just kept seeing his hair getting salt and peppery and whitish. And I'm thinking the lighting's too bright. I'm not seeing it right on my computer. And then finally I watched again immediately before this episode or before we started recording. And I went to a dark area and I go, okay, it wasn't me. It did start black. It did get salt and peppery. Now it's full. I mean, that's not even a good bad wig. That is bad spray paint. That is all that is. Keanu's hair looks great, of course. But it was very much, I'm so glad I wasn't gaslit. And it made sense because, you have the journal entries, these brides, they're draining me just enough. So literally they're sucking life out of him. Then you add stress, you add the anxiety. This man has aged a lifetime in a short amount of time.
Yes. Yeah. The book goes from May 3rd to September, I think. It's like not very long at all, honestly. And then you factor in all that travel that they all did. Like it was a lot, you know. Van Helsing's back and forth to Amsterdam. But so at the end of the book, the men, Quincy, Jack, Jonathan, and Arthur all track down the box carrying Dracula on a horse-driven cart, and then Jonathan rips open the cover and he puts his knife into Dracula. Then Quincy puts his knife into Dracula, and then he turns into dust. And then Quincy is stabbed and he bleeds out in front of everybody. And then there's a nice little epilogue. In the movie, similar, yeah?
Yeah, it's like a fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what it is. And then dusk breaks and Dracula pops out of the box after being captured, and he like is all on top, like, and he gets stabbed. He gets stabbed, and he really just asks Mina to do the final drive, you know, like, but saying goodbye to the love of his life. Like, it's very much more like, I can't live in this world without you, and I don't want to condemn you to this life of darkness. Like, heal yourself. I'll find you again. And then they close out, and it's the mural on top of Dracula and Elisabetta, and it's a zoom out.
It's the love story ending.
Yeah.
Because then it ties together.
Yeah.
Of course that doesn't exist. So we end with the epilogue, like I said earlier, of it's like 7 years later. Everybody goes back to Transylvania to like mark this anniversary, and they go back and they go to the castle and they see everything, and then Van Helsing's like bouncing the baby, you know, talking about how wonderful Mina is and how, you know, they can reflect on it now and how it was an adventure, but at the time it was a battle for your soul, and, you know, all of this stuff. And I like the epilogue in the book, one, because I like that they go back. I like that they go back and they're like, and all of them go back and they're like, this is where that was. This is where that was. It was real. We know that it's real. We're all still in contact. Like, we're all still working together.
Not like this crazy fever dream that we just...
Yeah. You know, and they named their baby Quincy because Quincy died. And, you know, it's a really wonderful, like, kind of wrap up to this horror story. And it really is. It's a horror story. In the book, in this movie, it's a love story. And, you know, the marketing, the societal hook of this romance, needed it. You know, I'm not saying it's not needed, but I am saying that the book obviously stands on its own as just like this pillar of fiction. Like, truly, it is just crazy good. It's crazy good. Oh my gosh.
And I was going to ask, like, what's your favorite iteration of Dracula? But I also don't think that's a fair ask, because Bram Stoker's Dracula is so its own, and how he as a character is kind of put into different storylines in various ways. It becomes an entirely different Dracula. So I also don't feel like that was going to be an initial question that I asked you, but I don't think that's fair to say either.
I do have just like a handful of favorite Dracula movies that I can use to answer that question, though. So I really did like Renfield with Nicholas Hoult. I just love him. I love him. So that movie's really good. That was in 2023. Van Helsing again in 2004.
I know you loved that movie.
I love that movie.
When they re-released it in theaters in 2005 for some reason. Maybe there was like a $5 movie someplace, and you came back to the room and I was like, oh, cool. But it was also with Kate Beckinsale, and it was after Underworld, and I know you were already on your Kate Beckinsale shit. So I feel like you weren't going for Hugh, you were going for Kate.
Always Kate. Oh, it's so good. So good. And we will cover that. Don't worry. 2004 Van Helsing. Dracula 2000. That was a really big one. That was Wes Craven's like take on Dracula. That was a huge one. My other ones are Dracula, Dead and Loving It. That's Mel Brooks's one. Like, I mean, we love Mel Brooks. We love. And then, this one is in the 90s, and then you have to go back to Bela Lugosi, of course. The 1931 Dracula is
that the black and white one where he's like
Yes.
really creepy up the stairs? Yeah, I don't know if I'd watch that one.
That's that one. And then, of course, Nosferatu in 1922. That's the black and white one where he's got long ears and the white face.
Yeah, that one would scare me too.
Yeah,
See,
that
this is
one.
probably why I've known iterations, but never gone, especially to the originals. And I say originals, like I say the ones from like the 1920s and 1930s, because there is a fear horror component more so in those. There's
Yes.
I say lightness in air quotes for 1992, probably because of the love story. But I feel like you've always known to expose me to whether it was fantasy or, sci-fi or like any new genre. You're like, what's the angle? And it's worked, I don't know, thus far for the last 6 years. Let's keep going. And then I get to dive in a little bit more and can be logical and can be realistic, and kind of like that fear is taken out of it and it makes it easier to approach. But which I'm assuming is probably some of the angles that entertainment and Hollywood take on a lot of these. What is going to be the mass appeal? Because maybe not everybody was exposed to the classics. I mean, we already know the literacy crisis that's happening here in the country. So if we know that, we know the classics aren't necessarily being explored. So what is a way and an avenue that we can channel it to, like, obviously making it appeal to more people helps with box office numbers, but also just like allows the conversation still.
And the conversation, again, this is where these are all, my talking points. I'll end here. But the conversation is, again, in the forefront of everybody's mind, because we can all point back to Nosferatu with Bill Skarsgård. And everybody knows Lily and her meme of her pulling at her dress. Like, we use that for everything, and that's from that movie. That movie is fan-fucking-tastic. And I could write so many papers on how that movie is just like sexual assault survivors and how everybody and how you deal with it and like the grief that comes with it, mental health, all of that. It is the perfect illustration of that. I think it is just really, really worth somebody that is qualified, not me, somebody that is qualified, sitting down and presenting it that way so it could be more accessible, because I find it to be just this representation that is right there, but it's presented as this horror. And of course it is, but women's horror is so much deeper than men's horror. So there's so much nuance to that. And of course Nosferatu is the knockoff of Dracula, the fan fiction of Dracula. What came first? Dracula, but then Nosferatu came. And Nosferatu, copyright. It is so, I'm going to say it's so fucking similar. Of course, that is the whole point of it, but it is so similar that it's so much closer to the book than it is to this romance gothic, fairy tale that Francis and Gary have given us. Nosferatu is like the bare bones, cold, like it's not a romance with the teeth. It is this like brutal, like sucking, there's no romance there. And so I think that difference too is very interesting and worthy of a conversation. And having the classics adapted this way, it increases accessibility because a lot of the libraries have this stuff. It's there. So what happens is that you have to, and I really don't like this. This makes me sound like a brat, but Jessica Marie, you know what I'm going to say? You have to make sure that you're choosing the right version, because there's so many like abridged or edit, you want the original.
Yeah, and I feel like we had this conversation also too recently with 1984, where we were, not only were we checking in with each other, we were making sure, I mean, just for the conversation purposes, one, we should be going to the original source material, and two, for consistency's sake as well. And there were so many different versions, so many iterations, so many abridged versions, unabridged. And then even if we had some that it was all Bram Stoker's Dracula with different times. And that's a whole different conversation when it comes to audio narration, if you're not familiar with it. But some were longer than the other, but they were still unabridged. And we just were looking for which had, we wanted the most complete version. And we found that. And I mean, that's across the board with so many things. That being said,
Jessica Marie, what is your takeaway of this conversation? So you have this unique perspective. Like, you have listened to me talk about the book and you are very experienced with the movie now. So what has Dracula, how has he changed for you?
I mean, I don't think he's a villain. I don't think he's a monster. I think he was created that way. Again, through the version that I saw, he had his villain, I say villain in air quotes, his origin story. He did this thing and it caused him to react because a man yearned. His love ran so deep that it kind of catapulted this whole story. I don't think I understood the drive women had and in the Dracula narrative. Love story or not, like, obviously I knew it in the the romance capacity from watching it, but hearing you talk about it, seeing how much it truly, and how much of Lucy and Mina's relationship was the vehicle through, and like you even said, all of Lucy's suitors is a good chunk. And granted, it's a movie. It's a 2-hour movie. So you're not going to have a huge chunk, but it was interwoven so seamlessly with the back and forth and understanding. So I can only imagine how much that book is. But the female friendship and how that really drives it, knowing that there's no romance in the original, manuscript, more or less, that's really exciting to know. And again, is another way that this movie has made me want to go back in this conversation, to go back and actually read it as the classic as it is through the audio narration that we have.
Bam. Mic drop. Accessibility for the classics, man. Keep putting them out there. Word of mouth. Don't let them take this stuff from us. For, this Dracula is the shit. Frankenstein is the shit. Like, everything that we have covered on here is amazing. So it is so fun to cover this with you, Jessica Marie. I cannot wait.
Well, thanks for being so patient with me and just so malleable when it came to digesting and accessing this, and respectful of like what was going to work for both of us, and creating this opportunity to have that, I don't even want to say conflict, but a contrast in the conversation, that we were still able to drive the story through different mediums.
Of course, that's what we do here on ACOFAE. We explore all genres. And if that is forcing Jessica Marie to explore horror, we will, because it's 2026. What could be worse than where we already are? So, horror is making a comeback.
Get your kicks in 2026 ACOFAE Podcast. But with that being said, feel free to follow us on Instagram. We're at ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. Feel free to rate us 5 stars on any of your listening platforms. We'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much, and talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.